Star Trek Enterprise, and really Star Trek as a whole, had one of the biggest missed opportunities in the entire franchise. I am talking about the tactics and technology group that specialized in combat expertise that appeared in over 30 episodes of Enterprise, and made one final more recent appearance in Star Trek Beyond, the MACOs.
I'm Major Hayes, this is Sergeant Kemper, Corporals Romero, and Chang.
Military Assault Command.
Captain Archer, one of the best.
In my humble opinion, the lack of use of the MACOs in Star Trek, more recent Star Trek, and even their use of the debut series Enterprise was honestly quite limited. The MACOs made their first appearance in the Season 3 premiere, the Xindi, and act as a form of protection for the Enterprise crew and even rescued Captain Archer in their very first appearance. They would live as sort of outsiders to the rest of the Enterprise crew.
He's determined to take over the security of this ship, you know.
You really believe that?
In a lot of ways would act as outsiders to the larger Trek franchise. Gene Roddenberry was always against the idea of militarizing Starfleet. Starfleet was always seen to be the good guys. The guys with the eyes the size of saucers when it came to exploration of the stars and ourselves. The thought of militarizing Starfleet in any way, specifically with soldiers that were basically Navy SEALs, certainly wouldn't have flied with him. Despite all this, I feel the MACOs could have opened a lot of dialogues to stories that were and are difficult to explore. While I completely agree and understand with Gene Roddenberry's notion of a grander future, without such exploratory ideas, we wouldn't have had great series like Deep Space Nine.
Because I can live with it.
This idea of using MACOs could have been a great way to explore our use of military campaigns, when it isn't needed, or perhaps our overall mistreatment towards military personnel in general. While the conversation isn't a pleasant one, rest assured Star Trek has had no problem diving into difficult problems to questions, or in their own world to solve.
There's something we need to discuss.
Enterprise's timeline is 2153 when the first MACOs appear, netting them about 200 years before Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Perhaps the demilitarization of Starfleet could have went wrong here, and the idea of having ships carrying troops designed for one malevolent purpose went against the Federation's great ideal. To further on that, we could have seen the rise and fall of the MACOs. In this light, this is basically what created Star Trek Beyond's villain in Krall. Krall, formerly Balthazar Addison, was a MACO who was abandoned and stranded on the planet Altamid.
He was a soldier.
Aye, sir, and a pretty good one. His military service came to an end when MACO was disbanded.
Why? What happened?
Krall grew this hatred towards Starfleet, and his motivations for being a villain were absolutely solid.
I'm a soldier! You won the war! Edison, you gave us peace!
Ironically, the negative context of the MACOs was touched on in the novelization The Expanse. Here, Captain Archer is uncomfortable and basically against the idea of having military personnel serving aboard a starship, in particular the Enterprise. However, his negativity towards them changed when he realized they could have great use in finding the Xindi weapon. Interestingly enough, the novel also stated that it's pronounced MACO and not MACO, but to this day I still see people saying MACO, including myself, so I'm just going to say MACO. How would I have done it? Well, in recent years, we know that Michelle Yeoh will be leading a Section 31 series. In my mind, Section 31 is the underbelly of Starfleet, and if you're willing to go to that route, you'd at least have to explore what MACOs would be like. I'd go for a limited run, potentially 1 to 2 seasons going over the birth of the MACOs, and the disinterest from the Federation in regards to having a militarization installment on each ship. This could create a grand conversation about how we treat our veterans, and what is expected of them when it comes to combat situations. Overall, the MACOs were lightly represented in the back 9 of Enterprise, and were a cute tip of the hat in Star Trek Beyond. However, at the least, it should have spawned into a series or a carried series with Section 31 in regards to the militarization of Starfleet. Roddenberry was always against the idea, so carry the multi-perspective viewpoints that Trek has always had and show various reasons to why it's good and why it could ultimately be bad. And that's all I have to say, but come on, MACOs are sweet, just make a MACO series already. If you want to hear me talk more about Trek, click on this video here, and I'll see you on the next one.